7:30 on this Thursday morning. You're welcome along to OTB AM. Owen and Kenny Cunningham with you right the way through until 10 o'clock this morning. And we're going to be getting Kenny's reaction to the Champions League this midweek. We're going to have Dermot Corrigan with us after 8 to go through some of the storylines from the Spanish side of things in the Champions League. And on the rugby front, Luke Fitzgerald will be with us after 8:30 to look ahead to the first weekend of the Heineken Champions Cup. After 9, though, is the big one. It is the second part of OTB AM's gift guide for Christmas 2021. Jess Kelly will be with us in studio to go through some of the tech that you need to get your hands on, with 16 days to go officially now until Christmas. It's getting close, Kenny. Today is Gadgets morning.
It's too long to wait to get Jess into the studio. Personally, let's get her in now, roll her in. Let's park all the football discussion for the next 3 hours.
How are you fixed for Christmas?
Out. Oh, struggling as always. No, I'm. There's no pressure really. I don't put myself under pressure, and I haven't done for quite some time in terms of getting presents. You know, those days of feeling guilty about putting a token in a card and handing it to people are long gone. Absolutely no problems now whatsoever. Taking the easy option.
It's about the love you give, not the presents you give.
Yeah, almost reveling it now. Just reveling it. Just kind of put the card in the hand, put the Christmas card in there. They know what's inside. I know. They know I haven't made much of an effort, etc., etc. It's all in the eye contact. It's just accepted now. It's part of the course.
What is it, like a voucher? It's
just who's going to top each other in terms of the amount of the voucher, really, isn't it?
Right.
How much have you put in there? If you give me 20, if you try to top me, if you put 30 in there, try to embarrass me, I'm going to put 35 just so I get one up on you.
And is this going to be a flush year for the vouchers?
Well, the problem with that this year is, as I see it, your get out of jail card was always chapters, wasn't it? Parnell Square, so obviously they're going through it a little bit, aren't they? The doors look as if they're closing down there, which is a sad day, really. But yeah, so I'm just thinking it's a bit of a dilemma now, isn't it? You hand somebody a voucher, by the time they go to use in the new year, good luck. So the chapters is no more. So,
like, all your people that you would give presents to were all book lovers, and you would tend to give them chapters vouchers.
I hope they're book lovers. I don't really.
It's a good present.
I don't give it that much thought. It is, yeah. I like the start actually in there, to be honest with you. I always think of it myself. It's a selfish thing, isn't it? You think, well, if I was to receive a boot voucher from there, I'd be reasonably happy. It's a nice place to spend a bit of time. I think they got the second hand area upstairs, don't they? And obviously the big area downstairs. Well, I hope they survive, to be honest with you. No, kind of laughing a little bit, but it's a bit of a feature on the north side of the city chapters, I think, like, you know what I mean? So I was listening to the owner talk there some time ago. He was a little bit pessimistic in terms of their chances of surviving, but I think kind of people have rallied around. I think they've had a bit of business footfall since then, when people became aware of the fact that I think it might be disappearing. They've been in there and spending the money. Hopefully that'll be sufficient to keep the store going. It's sad to see the old retail outlets disappear, particularly on the north side.
Yeah,
it's struggling as it is, like, so we'll see. So you might have to that's don't want to be spending like €30 on a book token, and then it's like a double whammy, and then they can't use it. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's a bit of an awkward one, that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
You feel obligated then to give them like a cash substitute. Well, like, I mean, you're 30 euro out of pocket for the start with the book token.
Well, that's it, exactly.
They haven't cashed in the person you've given the present to. So is there an obligation on your part that you've got to stump up another 30 in cash or something, or
just give them cash in the first place? I don't care how jammy it looks rather than a voucher, but just to be safe, you could always just give them €30 voucher, or €30 cash, I should say.
Yeah, but you can always kid yourself on with a voucher that you've made a token gesture of an effort, and in terms of giving somebody a Christmas present, the cash is really a kind of literally, there you go, I literally could not be asked.
Yeah.
Where the token, I think, for chapters is always, you can make an argument. Well, I wrestled with a few things, and eventually I thought, no, the book token, that suits you. You know what I mean? You can kind of rationalise that to yourself, can't you, between your ears? The cash options is just, you got to hold your hands up. I just couldn't love it.
I like that. I like that shout. A book voucher for Christmas. It's a spoiler for anybody later on. It is going to be mostly tech that we're talking about later. Like, is this something that gets you excited? Are you somebody who thrives about the fact that we're so close to Christmas that you're like, bring on the excitement? Do you like Christmas?
I think probably the lead up to Christmas, there's a little bit of that buzz factor potentially this year. I'm not too short. I was in the shops there, was it last week or not till a few days ago, and I was surprised actually how busy it was. A little bit of a buzz around the place. So I think it's more so the lead up that Christmas week. I think Christmas Eve potentially, if you got to pop into town Christmas Eve, everybody herding around the place. Hopefully that'll still be the case this year. Yeah, but the actual Christmas week, I must admit, it's a funny one. Since I finished playing, what most players think, it's a strange one, really. Like, you know what I mean? Just so busy when you're playing that Christmas New Year period, the schedules and everything's. It's a selfish thing, really. It's all about the football, the focus, preparation. You know what I mean? That kind of drives everything. The family kind of have to kind of fit in and around that, don't they?
Did you train on Christmas Day most years?
Yeah, pretty much always. Yeah, always came in. If there was a home game, say Stephen's Day, we were playing at home. Yeah, we'd be in Christmas Day reasonably early, have the session. And then be back home with the families Christmas Day, and then arrive in for the game Stephen's Day. The tricky one is if you were away Stephen's Day and you had a bit of a distance to travel, then really that usually then you'd arrive in Christmas afternoon, you'd have dinner at home,
right?
Then arrive at maybe 3 o'clock in the afternoon Christmas Day, have your session, and then get on the bus and go Christmas night. So that was a little bit of a blow for maybe the lads there with young families at the time. That was a little bit of a wrench, not so much for the younger lads. But yeah, but that initial first couple of years when I finished playing, it was a little bit of a
like anticlimax sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I used to get out to a couple of games, maybe doing a little bit of work TV wise, going to a few games. Stephen's Day, so that grand New Year's. Yeah, but I really enjoy the football. It's an obvious thing that week. It'd be a sad day if we were to miss, talking about chapters disappearing on the north side. If we ever lost that Christmas New Year's schedule, I think a lot of talk about that winter break coming in. It has been for some years, but I think they ever do it, they have to do it kind of the early January period. I think it'd be a massive own goal for the league itself, and a load of different levels of people, the whole thing. If that week, that Christmas to New Year week was to be lost.
You get to Stephen's Day, you wake up and you're like, right, I'm just sick of everybody at this point, just turn on the football. It's been 3 full days.
I was going to say sick of the turkey, but you're not quite. Not Stephen's morning. That'd have to be the day. Probably not even the day after that.
No,
probably day number 4, is it?
Day 2 is sandwiches. Day 3 is sandwiches. Day 4, sometimes you could put the turkey into a curry.
Oh yeah. Do you not have the turkey dinner on Stephen's?
You would have the turkey dinner as well. Again, but I mean, you wake up. What's your breakfast on Stephen's Day?
Yeah, casserole. Be turkey casserole now. Tour day.
Day 3.
More or less. Yeah, day 3. Does the turkey survive?
We go turkey curry rather than casserole.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like world's changed, isn't it?
It has changed.
Turns upside down, isn't it? It's turned upside down. You'd never got away with that back in the day.
No, I can imagine. I feel ashamed saying it in front of
town. You've been run out of town on the estates.
Yeah.
Serving up. People got a whiff of that turkey curry. The priests have been called and everything. Does a turkey really survive the 4th day of Christmas? The fourth day after Christmas Day?
I think it does.
That's a hell of a turkey, isn't it?
The juices get to know one another quite well by that stage. It's how the turkey operates. So you have plenty of that coming up. The one thing I meant to ask you as well, actually, before we tell you what's coming up, is are you lights up on the 9th of December sort of guy or not? Like, are you going home now after this and the decorations are all up?
Oh, that's down to me. No, that's down to other people to make. I know I'm not. In terms of, is it the 8th?
Today's the 9th.
That was that was the country. The country folk. Sorry to be. That's not condescending.
No, you used the politically correct term. You could have used 2 phrases there that would have been a lot worse.
Our country friends. How about that? Would that be? Is that more condescending?
Our comrades from down the country.
That's the traditional day up to. I've forgotten about that. Somebody reminded me of it yesterday. Yeah, I do remember a little bit of that back in. Was that genuinely the case? Not from Kerry.
Not from Kerry, we were too far away. So I think it's more from people in the Midlands and things like that.
You were just buzzing getting into Killarney. That was a big cosmopolitan area down. That was like.
I was saying this.
You might as well have been arriving in New York, arriving in Killarney High Street back then. Is that right?
I was saying it to somebody else the other day actually that Cork felt like the most exotic place in the world when I was 10 or 11. Like that was like this metropolis, this bustling metropolis. So no, I mean we have enough.
Oh, Dublin must have been. Dublin was just like. Does it really exist? Is that like
Dublin's
utopia?
a bad place. That's where bad things happen.
Never.
Yeah. So you are lights up potentially, but you don't actually know. That's the answer that I'm getting here. You don't actually know.
I don't. Not to that extent. Yeah. That's a little bit. It's a little bit anal, isn't it? I think in terms of you have to go up at a certain day and be down by. No, don't buy into that.
Right, OTB AM is brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. Let's tell you what's coming up this morning on OTB AM. We're going to get stuck into some of the football talking points over the next little while, and at 8:15 Dermot Corrigan will hop on a call to chat through Barcelona getting knocked out of the Champions League last night. They are officially a Europa League team. We'll be talking Atletico, we'll be talking Real Madrid with him as well. It is a Madrid derby this weekend, so plenty to get stuck into with him. The sports page is coming your way at 8:30, and then the sports news at 8:40 with news this morning that Limerick have got 12 All-Stars in the hurling front, which is a record by quite a distance. They have smashed the previous record across both codes, the Dublin footballers, the Kilkenny hurlers, the Kerry team of the 1980s. They only managed to get 9 in a single year. Limerick have got 12. The big talking point other than that is that Cork haven't got a single All-Star despite making the All-Ireland hurling final. So we'll get John Duggan's take on that a little bit later on. Luke Fitzgerald will be with us at 10 to 9 to look ahead to the weekend's rugby. And then that gift guide, 9:10. You do not want to miss it. We've got the gadgets in studio, and we've got Jess Kelly in studio at 9:10. And then a bit of last night's football show with Gabriella Marcotti talking to Joe. So it is 7:41 on this Thursday morning. Kenny, we are 2 games into the Ralph Rangnick revolution at Manchester United. We haven't been speaking to you since he's actually got the job. When you see his name up in lights, when you see him come in, are you thinking to yourself, right, this is a good move to get Manchester United to the end of the season?
Well, I suppose time will tell in terms of the what he changes in terms of Manchester United's playing kind of style, stroke, organisation, defensive structure, the whole thing there on. I could understand in terms of more so medium to long term, in terms of his role potentially going forward, and maybe choosing the next Manchester United manager in terms of potential player recruitment. Going forward, it has a pretty impressive CV in that respect, that type of kind of job title at a football club. Although as soon as I was making that kind of argument, then he went and muddied the waters by saying, well, I would be open potentially if this was the guy. I
might give myself the job.
yeah, exactly. I might consider my own CV in the summer. So yeah, that kind of threw me a little bit for that reason. I said, oh, no, you're not really kind of separating yourself there from the pro, so I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work. But yeah, I think it's what's needed. I think they've needed a little bit of organisation and a bit more of a game plan on the pitch. Particularly the defensive structure of the team hasn't been good enough, particularly in the games against Liverpool and Manchester City in particular. That was painfully obvious. You can have as many top class individual players on the pitch as well, but if you got no kind of cohesion in terms of what you're doing, it's not good enough in the modern game against the very best teams, and they're kind of ruthlessly exposed. So yeah, I'm interested and looking forward to seeing it. And haven't seen much, just saw the highlights of the Crystal Palace game of the week. Yeah, I think people go a little bit over the top, saw a little bit of analysis from over the way, like, you know what I mean.
It's one training session, one game, like I'm talking about it on Sunday, like.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so I'll give him a little bit of time, that little bit of a bounce, kind of new manager. It's always going to be the case, but I'll be interested in seeing just tactically how we assess the team up going forward. So yeah, but it's all to play for, isn't it? I mean, as bad a start as they've had, you look at the table, and Spurs are similar. You think in your head, you're thinking Spurs, it's just what's lost our managers, absolutely turmoil around that place. And then suddenly you look at the table, they're kind of bang on the heels of West Ham Champions League top 4 places, still very much up for grabs, and for Manchester United and kind of Tottenham respectively. So still a huge amount to play for. Factor in the Champions League as well, in a good place. Manchester United kind of tiptoed their way through that, haven't they? The Champions League stage, we finished up as group winners, which is what you want to do. So it's amazing, really. Things have changed very quickly. That wouldn't be the first half of the season. Teams getting written off, turmoil in the camp, and all of a sudden, second half, suddenly, it all takes off. Not how you start, where you finish, as they say. So yeah, I think it's it's just bubbling along nicely. There's a load of subplots there, what's going on in the Premiership, top 3, Champions League, everything, like, you know what I mean, managers, etc. So yeah, I think it's going to be a great second half of the season on a lot of different levels.
Absolutely. You're right, it's very hard to read into Rangnick's first 2 games. Last night he played a team that are never going to play with each other again. That combination of youth and experience, it will be a shock if they ever play together again. It's interesting though, listening to what he's saying. We can read into this a little bit. Like, he's saying after we conceded the equaliser, we were not defending high enough or proactive enough. In the end, the score could have been 4-4, and then nobody could have complained. And he said what was a little bit annoying is that we gave the ball away and played too many balls into the first line of their pressing area. Whenever we played the ball into the second or third line, we were always dangerous. I told them that before the game, but they still played it into that first line.
I I don't like to hear too much of that. That's basically kind of like, washing your hands of, well, I've told the players what to do, they're just not prepared to do. You got to be very careful saying those type of things. They raise a few eyebrows in the dressing room. Very quickly players will feel, well, hold on, point the finger here a little bit. So
Donny van de Beek is probably the player. I mean, I'm no expert in football speak here, but it does seem to me that he passed the ball into the first line as their pressing area when Young Boys equalised last night. Has this always been an issue for Manchester United? Like, have they got stuck in their own third quite a bit?
No, it's a pretty basic thing that he's saying. Basically, all he's saying, if you're looking, your defenders are looking to play opposition team, put a kind of high press on. Don't take any unnecessary risks with that forced pass. Sometimes it's better to beat the press by playing a ball over the initial press, into your centre forward on the halfway line, make the opposition players turn, head back towards the half. But that's just kind of common sense stuff, really. I think we've seen a bit of that with Ireland actually the last maybe number of games. I think initially when Stephen came in, you saw a little bit of indecision when we were looking to play, or we were getting the ball pinched off. Was that kind of forced press, teams were having a bit of that initial press, I should say, having a bit of joy against us. But the last few games, you've noticed when we've been playing, teams have been pressing us. We've been playing that ball around the corner into the centre forwards feet, Callum Robinson, Alameda, a little bit quicker. You know what I mean? So kind of less risk, not just less risk for me, but it's the it's the kind of common sense thing to do. So yeah, I wouldn't, sometimes you can overblow stuff. Like, it's a little bit technical what he says, so people can get blown away.
Yeah.
Super.
I'm
coach,
guilty.
But yeah, basically what he's saying is don't pass it to someone else out your penalty box if he's if he's marked. You know what I mean? Just pass it to someone who isn't marked a bit higher up the pitch. That's basically what it means. But yeah, it's interesting, that kind of high press that he's talking about. High defensive line.
Yeah,
that'd be very interesting. Liverpool are probably the best exponents of that, and kind of continue to do so. But they do it, and they're kind of comfortable doing it because they have absolute, turbocharged centre halves in terms of Van Dijk, Gomez, Konate now, players whose recovery speed is absolutely phenomenal. If Manchester United can't get Varane on the pitch and have to go with Harry Maguire and Lindelof at centre half, I'm not exactly sure at times if that kind of high press is going to suit you when teams are throwing the ball in behind, down the sides, and Harry Maguire's got to do 260-degree turn and start running towards the edge of his penalty box. So,
but one of them is going to have to play alongside Varane. So even just with one of them on the pitch, is that a problem?
Well, I think it can be. Yeah, if opposition teams are good enough, they're clever enough to recognise what you're doing, and they can isolate that little bit of a chink in your team. And Harry Maguire is that, in terms of his kind of mobility and his athleticism. And if you're going to kind of press high up the pitch, you have to sacrifice your modern game. You have to sacrifice your fullbacks. Generally, you can't press high up the pitch and keep your fullback nice and narrow and kind of babysit your centre half on that side of the pitch. You pretty much have to send almost everybody up the pitch and leave yourself 2v2, 3v3 at the back. And if teams can work the ball into those areas down the sides, centre halves now predominantly have to be comfortable, playing 1v1. That's the modern game. Not just, I wouldn't just say that the very top clubs. Most clubs now, most managers have the same kind of philosophy in terms of pressing, committing high numbers up the pitch and asking the centre halves, look, you're going to have to defend 1v1 a lot of the time. You're going to have to be comfortable doing it. And the defenders who are comfortable doing it, generally the ones who can shift over the ground, mobile, quick, got all those kind of athletic, physical attributes actually, as opposed to maybe kind of, how good they are defensively, decision making. I think it's very difficult now to have, to be slow and cumbersome over the ground now as a centre half. I mean, it would have been such a struggle for me in the modern game for that reason. It's so difficult for me, I would literally have panic attacks when I was playing centre half and me full back, got further than 15 yards away from me at any time during the game. I got isolated in the pitch. I'd have heart palpitations, you know what I mean? Literally be screamed. The natural reaction then was to drag people around you, pull people around your centre half, get your full back in, centre midfielder, get a bit of protection in front of you. That's how we played it then, and that was actually encouraged to a certain extent. Now it's the opposite. We got to press. It's the high press now, isn't it? So to press high, you got to commit people into high areas of the pitch, and to do that, of course, you leave yourself, your two centre halves or three centre halves, whatever it is now, exposed more now than they've ever been. And such now is the onus on them to be able to defend in kind of 1v1 situations, in and around that kind of halfway line. That's not easy. And I don't think Manchester United necessarily are best equipped to do that, particularly when Varane's not available. So that'll be interesting. I think that's the son of a good coach. He wants to play a certain way, but very quickly assesses the squad and says, not necessarily sure I have the players to do that. Just need to modify things here a little bit. So that'll be interesting.
Just the other thing he was talking about last night was Mason Greenwood, who played and scored an unbelievable goal, and he says the continuity for him is to develop physically. That's the thing. For his age, he's a great player, but my job, Ranić says, is to develop him, make an athlete out of him, and then if he manages to do that, he can become a regular player for this club. Have you noticed that as well, that's the physical bit for Greenwood?
I haven't actually, to be honest with you. That's one of the things I wouldn't have thought was an issue actually. I think physically he's matured actually over the summer. I think Navy look at him as terms of physical specimen. I don't look at Mason Greenwood and think he's got to toughen up a little bit. He needs another a bit of body weight. Physically he can't deal with the Premiership. I haven't thought that for some time, to be honest with you. I think for me it's the opposite with Greenwood. Greenwood needs game time. And this is, for me, this goes back to the original argument. We won't recycle again about Ronaldo coming into the club, because when Sancho signed for me, it made sense Sancho coming to the football club in terms that it pushed Mason Greenwood into a central striking position. Him and Cavani dovetailing that number 9 position for the course of the season. Might have mentioned it before. So Sancho coming in for me suggested, right, we're going to see Greenwood now play 25 to 30 games now. That's central striking area. He could be United's next number 9 for the next kind of 10 years. I think he has that potential, kind of shooting ability. We've seen it already in kind of cameo roles. So if I was a Manchester United fan, I wouldn't get excited about that. But Ronaldo coming in at the last minute has just like, you know what I mean? That's kind of ended. Now it's a kind of, he's not going to play centre forward now. Well, if he's going to play, he's going to play on the right. But where does Sancho play? So that's the problems that have been created in terms of maybe a little bit of an overload of players now in that area of the pitch. And it's a shame for him, because him for me, like I've said it for a while, and I think potentially he's the one. He could be the best at a lot, but we have to find out. He needs minutes on the pitch now to see potentially could he be Manchester United's number 9 for the next 10 years. He just needs to get the opportunity, and I'd suggest a run of games in that area of the pitch rather than spending time in the gym and potentially bulking up. If that's what Ranić is suggesting, that surprises me a little bit.
And it's certainly what he said yesterday. Like, it's interesting. We would assume that maybe the Palace game gives us a greater indication as to what Ranić is planning, and if he goes with a 4-2-2-2 again this weekend, like you had Fernandes and Sancho in those 2-10s, and then you had Ronaldo and Rashford up front in the front two. How does Greenwood fit into those front four then, if this is the formation he continues to play?
Yeah, well, I think he can. I think he's versatile. Rashford. I don't think we should get too carried away with 4-2-2. Oh, this is groundbreaking stuff.
It's not groundbreaking.
Yeah, but it changed. But the team shape changes any moment in the game. In possession, out possession. One play, wingers coming on the inside into those little pockets that you're talking about. That wouldn't be highly unusual. Wide players coming and playing on the inside, and fullbacks, providing the width on the overlap. Like, we're kind of splitting hairs a little bit in terms of what he's putting on the pitch on the moment. Isn't like, wow, this is phenomenal. We just haven't seen this in the Premiership. Like, you know what I mean? It's pretty familiar.
Which is different for United, I think, is probably.
Yeah, of course it is. Small little adjustments, yeah, absolutely. But if you're talking about Greenwood, for me, can play any wide area, any kind of from whatever you're talking about. But where I want to see him is that central striking position, because I think his shooting ability off his left and right foot is pretty phenomenal. We talk about Ronaldo, how good he is. Ronaldo's probably the best 25 yards in, ball at either foot in terms of ability to hit the target regularly and with kind of precision and power. But Greenwood's got a bit of that. We've seen it already, his shooting power left right foot the last couple of years. Pretty phenomenal, actually, you know what I mean? So somebody's got that kind of armoury in terms of shooting ability. Really common sense. Let's get him into central areas of the pitch where we can get him on the ball, where we can actually utilise that, not necessarily in kind of wide areas, tight to the touchline where he's not going to have that opportunity. He's too far away from the goal. So that's the reason in my mind I'm thinking get him into those kind of central areas often enough, get him the ball, feed him. He looks as if is a natural goal scorer here. So yeah, in that system you're talking about, he could play up top alongside Ronaldo. Why not? The problem comes when you play with one central striker and Ronaldo pretty much plays. Then you're looking. Then he's got to compete against the likes of Rashford, Martial, and others. Sancho in particular for those remaining two kind of wide positions. I think those other players are more suited to those positions. Sancho in particular and Rashford off the left and Sancho off the right. I think predominantly that's where they want to play, where they're most comfortable and where they're probably at their most effective and at their best. But Greenwood for me potentially still could contribute more as an attacking central striker. So it'll be interesting to see his development and how Ranić sees his role in the team in the second half of the season.
The other interesting Manchester United talking point this week was that Randy has brought in Manchester United's first full-time psychologist, sports psychologist in 20 years. 20 years without
brings me back to the first psychologist I got introduced to. Bless him, he did age that year. Do you know, you look at somebody comes in the door at the start of the season, and then at the end of the season, then 8 months later he's walking out the door, and you think he's almost a broken man.
Was this at Wimbledon by any chance?
Oh no, we never saw one at Wimbledon. No. Joe wouldn't have been stupid enough to bring out psychologists at Wimbledon. No chance.
That would have been too extreme.
I think it was actually Birmingham.
Right.
I think my last couple of years, I would have been 30. That was the first time I had a bit of a. That was a tough one. No, I suppose attitudes were changing a little bit, but still a bit of resistance inside the dressing room even then. Oh, come on, Gaffer, do us a favour.
Yeah.
Particularly when you started. Wasn't too bad, the team dynamic when he came in, kind of team. Initially was kind of, team meeting, everybody was in the room offering a little bit of information, etc., etc. So the lads had suck it up, whatever type thing, but then it was kind of a little bit more tailored, wasn't a bit more individual 1v1 sessions with people. I thought that was interesting, you know what I mean? And there was some people who kind of embraced it a little bit. It was interesting. Now, people you wouldn't think, and you see them disappearing. You think, where's he going? Oh, yeah. Where'd you go? Oh, yeah, I just had a chat with Fred or whatever. Fred the Foot, actually, I think that he was the foot man there, plays Fred the Foot. He was a psychologist in his own right, really nice fella. But no, the psychologist himself, I think, found it difficult. A bit of resistance initially. That changed over time. It's not even a conversation people have now. But I think it's very much an individual thing. It wasn't for me, to be honest with you, in terms of the individual stuff. I like the group dynamic in terms of bringing the group together and having a bit of dialogue and encouraging, being a kind of conduit in some respects to get the group talking.
Okay.
Yeah. So I could understand that, but I always used to think, well, a good manager should be able to do that. A good manager's got to be a good communicator. So for me, always a little bit, why are you bringing someone from the outside in? You know what I mean? That really should be your response. You got those qualities as a manager, person, that's kind of human interaction, that type of thing. So but in terms of the group dynamic, it was absolutely fine, because I felt there's a little bit of value in that, kind of the group together. But not for me, individual, never really jumped on board in terms of the individual stuff. But other players did, and kind of quite embraced it.
Do you remember your first time being brought away individually with a sports psychologist?
Well, no, because it didn't happen.
It didn't happen. So you were obviously asked.
Yeah, it was, but no, it wasn't. It was a type of thing where you can't force people, can you? You got an appointment, you got to turn up. It's ridiculous, so it's got to be kind of open. That's the nature of it. He's available. He's here. If you want to go and see him, it's got to be something you want to kind of commit to yourself. So,
why were you reluctant?
I'm not too sure to be. I was probably at that stage, to be honest. I was in my 30s then. Was it early 30s? I would have been up at Birmingham. And you just feel as if you're in a place there mentally. I am what I am to a certain extent, and your understanding of the game on a load of different levels. It's it's pretty much enshrined, isn't it? I'd never say I know everything. I don't need to learn anything. You know what I mean? But just didn't feel as if at that point I knew my game. I knew what I was about physically. Qualities. A lot of experience behind me, a lot of games. So I didn't really feel. I wasn't overly comfortable. I got to be honest with you. I wasn't overly comfortable putting myself in that environment. Kind of football discussion. If I had been a coach, let's sit down and talk about your game, your performance at the weekend. Absolutely, no problem. We would have, really engaged in that. But sitting down with someone, him saying, "Well, how's the family?" Once you start going down that line, I would have been overly comfortable, to be honest with you.
Would that go for all of your football family, as it were, at Birmingham City? That you wouldn't have been necessarily sharing with personal details.
I think that's probably right. Yeah, maybe would have been the most open of books anyway. In people generally, even in people maybe would have been reasonably close to at the football club. So yeah, maybe it's not a football thing. Maybe that's just a me thing in general. You know what I mean? But a few of the lads, I must admit, I looked at from a distance, and I never discourage anybody. I'd always say, well, look, it's up to you. It's keep an open mind, and in you go. And some lads, it would surprise you. Some lads would go in and you think, and then they'd continue it, and you think, well, that's interesting. So, yeah, whatever. We're all different, aren't we? You know what I mean? So, But yeah, it has become, I wouldn't say a vital component, to be honest with you, but I think it's just another tool, isn't it? It's someone who's there. If anybody, a couple of lads can get a bit of a benefit from it, funny creatures really, professional athletes, you know what I mean? And like psychologically, confidence, all of those things, like mental strength doesn't take much, lack of form, confidence, a bit of a dip, personal stuff we've mentioned there, like stuff going on, maybe all that's been bottled up, all of these kind of things, it's multi-layered, isn't it? So to have somebody around who can kind of maybe tap into that, I can understand it. But like I said, for me, a really good manager, a really good communicator, somebody, that's what a great manager is, has those attributes in terms of can assess people, understands people, personality, bit of one-to-one, when it's needed, can actually resolve those issues. But no, I can understand it in principle. I certainly wouldn't laugh it off. Never did really, to be honest with you, but never really embraced it myself.
Yeah, I think what you're saying there is true. I think that's probably why United haven't had one for 20 years, is that the managers have probably felt, I can do this, or maybe they have a little bit too much control, or are giving too much, or they have too much of an impact on maybe the mindset of the players going into the weekend. I'm not sure. But
and it's the group, isn't it? And it's a different time now, isn't it? The Premiership's different now in terms of players coming in from the continent, from abroad, obviously being schooled in that respect, haven't they? Just like kind of different animals in terms of how they think, what they're prepared to accept, what they're closed off to. So I think it's about understanding the dressing room as well. Certain dressing rooms I was in, you mentioned maybe the one at Wimbledon, but I mean,
imagine a psychologist in that dressing room. That would have been
just no point. Like, bullet jokes and stuff like that's no good. You don't want to be coming in, you don't want people to be kind of disrespected, the professionals at the end of the day. But you have to understand your dressing room as well. And there would have been dressing rooms I would have played in. It would have been a no. You know what I mean? Just would have been no point in bringing someone like that in. The dressing room really wouldn't have been open to that type of input from somebody back then.
I just want to tell you about our competition this morning. All this week we're giving you the chance to win a Whoop 4.0 digital fitness tracker for you and two mates. They come with 12-month memberships, and as the prize winner you'll win €1,000 in cash. You can check out the OTB social channels to enter. This great Christmas gift is all with thanks to our friends at Whoop. Check out whoop.com for more information. It is 8:02. You're with us here on OTB AM, and we're going to be joined a little bit later on by Luke Fitzgerald. We're going to be joined by Jess Kelly for her gift guide after 9 o'clock, and we're going to be joined by Dermot Corrigan very shortly indeed as well, to get the Spanish angle on the Champions League this week, because there are a few big stories. Barcelona dropping to the Europa League, for example, is the big one from last night. Just a couple of other ones just to throw your way, Kenny, before then. Chelsea and Liverpool obviously in action this midweek as well. Chelsea, the result not insignificant. They finished second. They could get a terrible draw on Monday, and all of a sudden drawing with Zenit last night is a much bigger story than it is this morning. But are we starting to see a few cracks maybe in this Chelsea team over the last couple of weeks? A few results. Thomas Tuchel pretty unhappy in the aftermath of last night. It's becoming a little bit of a theme. I'm not saying it's a trend just yet, but we've seen a few moments of disappointment from Tuchel recently.
Yeah, a little bit of a drop off in terms of team performance. Been a little bit critical actually, Tuchel, and haven't heard too much of that since he's been in the door at the football club, particularly the tail end of last season, and even the start of this season. To be honest with you, I think like level of performance has been really high. They've been really impressive. Chelsea, talking about Manchester United, kind of maybe lack of cohesion in terms of what they're doing. Couldn't really point a finger at Chelsea in that respect. Look really well drilled. Whatever team goes on the pitch, everybody understands their roles, kind of playing with kind of real intensity, individual quality, which they know they have. Defensively, they've been quite secure, haven't they? Never quite, to be honest with you. I say, yeah, they have been very secure and whatever. A lot of people have lauded them for that, but never quite bought into it 100%. That kind of back three. Look at that back three of Thiago Silva. Just feel Thiago Silva. A lot of talking this season, player of the season, etc. And he's a wonderful player, has been. Just sense though at the moment, just looking at him physically, just in terms of his mobility, just signs there now really just beginning to struggle a little bit. Is he playing badly? No, he's not playing bad. He's such a good reader of the game, etc. Experience, absolutely. But just feel now when he gets a little bit isolated, speaking to you about defenders getting isolated, 1v1, big spaces around them, just feel as if now he's beginning to struggle a little bit in those kind of situations. Rudiger as well is a funny one for me, out of contract in summer, hasn't signed a new contract. Again, somebody I'm never quite, he puts in a performance, I think, I'm getting behind him, but there's always always a decision there, decision making, sometimes winning. He's got that aggressive nature for me, always looking for a fight with people. Just don't quite trust him as well, like 100% of the time. Trevor Chalobah's a lovely young player. He's only going to get better. Azpilicueta for me, brilliant player as he is, again, just on the decline. So very quickly for me, people look at Chelsea thinking, defensively he's absolutely rock solid. Christian as well, no problems there. But for me, very quickly that could change within a year. Thiago could be out the door, Rudiger could be gone.
Yeah.
If he throws his toys out of his pram, doesn't get the money that he's wanted, he's gone. Azpilicueta is a year older, you know what I mean? He's not going to get any quicker. So all of a sudden you're looking at the defensive unit and thinking, we've got a little bit of work to do there. You know, Tomori's over at AC Milan. They've let him go. He was a real talent. So suddenly they've got a few issues there. Now that's maybe a little bit down the road, but at the moment it's not perfect at the moment, and they need to resolve it. Certainly in terms of the Premiership title, because it's going to be so close now. Liverpool are coming on strong. They're beginning to find their mojo again. Manchester City now are going to be ruthless in terms of churning out results. So they just can't afford too many drop-offs, little blips here and there. Yeah, you can suffer them, you can suck them up and even go and still grab the title, but can't afford too many dips in form, which you feel as if they're just in at the moment. They need to come out of it pretty quickly.
We saw Reece James playing in midfield last night. This has clearly just become an area now where Tuchel is getting a few small worries. It's because of the fitness issues that they've had in midfield. Obviously, Kante struggled recently. in an ideal world, you would have himself and Kovacic available, and then Jorginho and Saul. You'd have four brilliant midfielders there. But the fact that he's trying him out in midfield probably suggests that Tuchel's not 100% happy with the options that he does have.
Yeah, well, I can understand it. I can understand why Saul Niguez came in. I think him playing at his peak a couple of years ago, I was a huge fan of his. Atletico Madrid, absolutely phenomenal. Nearly went to Manchester United, was linked a couple of times. A real box-to-box all action, defensively solid, mobile, technically very good. But I don't know what his issues are with Atletico Madrid the last year or so. He's looked a little bit off in terms of fitness-wise coming to Chelsea, so the jury's out on him. I've always felt Chelsea, in terms of that central midfield, people probably know how I feel in terms of Jorginho. I wouldn't be his biggest fan. Technically, I think he's very good, lovely footballer. But for me, you carry him out of possession in terms of his offensive qualities, I don't think are good enough. And I think that's exaggerated even more so when Kante doesn't play, because Kante picks up the slack for him and everybody else in that central midfield there in terms of the defensive work that he's done. So when he's out of the team, then for me they have a real issue. Kovacic and Jorginho doesn't cut it in there as a partnership, and Niguez probably not at the moment, so you're looking for that. Who's going to give us that bit of physicality in there, that kind of defensive slitty? Now you're searching for me a little bit in terms of that central midfielder. So that's why I suppose Reece James comes into the equation. Loftus-Cheek's played in there, he doesn't give you that. He's an attack minded player. He wants to get ahead of the ball and contribute in the opposite half of the pitch. So I think Reece James, I've always said, he looks as if he could play central midfield for me, the qualities which he has. He's that kind of versatile. He could understand the game, defensively strong. So I wouldn't surprise me if he perseveres with that going forward if Kante isn't available. So yeah, you're right, just small little issues, problems that he needs to resolve very quickly in terms of mounting a Premiership challenge. I think he needs to find a solution pretty quickly. Not that I'm expecting a massive drop off.
No, but the standard is so high.
It's not going to take much.
Yeah. Who are you actually tipping at the moment for the Champions League? Like, are you looking at Liverpool and Manchester City from Tuesday night and saying that's title credential right there in the context of this competition?
Yeah, and I can't see past the English clubs really. I know we're going to be speaking about Spanish football. It's hard to get to. Well, you can't get excited about Barcelona. They're out. Real Madrid, obviously, a little bit of a renaissance under Ancelotti, but it still had me doubts. I still have me doubts about them. Obviously, you throw maybe Bayern Munich into the equation, but apart from that, I wouldn't be getting too excited about PSG either, particularly off the back of what we've seen against Manchester City. So now for me it's still the three English teams which are favourites. I think Liverpool just the last couple of weeks on just feels as if it's coming together there. Van Dijk has put a couple of performances in the last couple of weeks suggesting physically he's getting very close to where he was previously, and that was an issue for him early in the season. His mobility looked a little bit restricted, lack of confidence in his body, and that was a little bit of a worry. Seems to have put that behind him. That's massive for Liverpool. Robertson coming back in, that defensive unit seems to be back together. Not only back together, you could argue even strengthened. Some of the performances Konate's putting in, again, very impressive midweek against AC Milan. So you could be making an argument soon that that defensive unit now is stronger than it ever was, with potentially Konate coming into the team. front three are doing what they're doing, and actually now beginning to see the emergence. Tyler Morton put in a performance the other night at the San Siro, which kind of performance I looked at it and thought, wow, this is impressive. Some of that young in age, such a mature performance for somebody in that kind of central midfield area. So again, you're thinking, there's more to come. Here's a player maybe could add something kind of going forward. Curtis Jones. So for Liverpool, for me, are just getting a bit of momentum behind them as well, and we've seen that previously with them. Once they get into that kind of mindset, hit that level of performance, get that kind of mentality, that kind of drive going, they're almost impossible to stop.
Yeah. Manchester City then, there's obviously the sense that there is a possibility they could do what they did last season, which is just pull away from the gap entirely, pull away from the crowd entirely come January, February. But it does look like that was just down to Liverpool being poor last season, and they're going to be able to keep on their heels if nobody else. Yeah,
no, I think they will be. Probably Liverpool had to be probably two them. I still think Chelsea could go to the War of the Three club. Literally could go to like second last game of the season. All of those three teams could still win it. I think it could be that close. Yeah, Manchester City. Yeah, exactly the same. Different type of beast to Liverpool in terms of how they play, managers' philosophy, etc., but just as effective. I just think the only thing that can get in their way, and I've said it before, is the manager. And that's happened for me. It happened in the Champions League final last year in terms of the team that he put on the pitch. I think it cost him, and I think it has cost him previously in terms of just maybe as good a coach as he is, just overthinking things and actually handicapping his teams at times in terms of the starting 11 that he puts on the pitch. You never feel with Klopp he kind of overcomplicates things in terms of the setup of the team and the individuals. Few and far between. I can remember some of the big games Liverpool have had the last couple of years under Klopp. It's a team coming on the pitch and you're thinking, whoa, what's he thinking there?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In terms of not much in terms of selection, but in terms of positioning people around the pitch. You could argue maybe when Alden played ahead of Kay or stuff like that, but not to the case where he'd be like, what's happening? Fabinho left wing, what's he thinking? None of that. You know what I mean? Just simplify, understand your structures, what you're doing, keep it simple for people, get them in their best positions, get the balance of the team right, and kind of off you go. Where I just think Manchester City have got that wrong disastrously, particularly in Champions League, like you're talking about there. Can they go at key moments, in the knockout stages at the past couple of years? I think the manager's got it wrong. I genuinely feel he got it wrong in the Champions League final last year. Playing with holding central midfield. You're talking about Chelsea at the moment.
Yeah.
A little bit kind of struggling a little bit of out killed. They're out of balance in that central midfield area. Well, I think you need that. I can't understand, even if you've got some of the best footballers in the world, technical players, for a portion of the game you're still not going to have the ball at some point. You might dominate 60-65%, but that kind of 30-35%, which West Ham actually are proving this year, that's enough to see you off. If your defensive structure isn't good enough, teams can expose that. Even with 30%, 25-30% possession of football, teams can expose that. If you've got a slight weakness, a soft centre in kind of that central area of the pitch. And I think Manchester City had that in the Champions League final last year. They didn't have to. They had the players in terms of Fernandinho to counteract that, and Rodrigo to a certain extent. But he parked them on the bench, and I thought they paid for it.
Yeah. And
that'd be the small worry with kind of Chelsea this season when Kante doesn't play. But it's great. It's kind of fascinating. But you're talking about like minutiae detail there, and particularly the top three. And Champions League is different now, isn't it? In terms of that knockout competition. Always a little bit different, is it? Just timing a little bit, players available and form at the right time of the year. Finding a bit of momentum as Chelsea did last season. New manager coming in, looking as if absolute turmoil. He comes in, that little bit of a bounce, everybody buys into it. Whoosh, off they go, and they're almost kind of unstoppable between them and the end of the season. And I just think Liverpool a little bit more. We've just got a bit of a sense of that in terms of a couple of their performances of late. So usual suspects.
Yeah, for sure. Right, it is 13 minutes past 8 on this Thursday morning. You are with us here on OTB AM, which is brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors.